The time is now 7:06. Thank you, everyone, for coming to tonight's ANC 3-4G regularly scheduled meeting. My name is Lisa Gore. I'm the chair, and we'll start with commissioner introductions. And we'll go from Jim straight on down the line, and then we'll come to the commissioners online.
Do I have to press the?
I don't think I think they can hear you.
Yeah. I'm Jim Nash, and I represent District 3.
And I'm Lisa Gore. I represent District 01, which is all of Hawthorne, portions of Barnaby Woods, up past Pinehurst Circle, upland.
Peter Lynch, SMD 05. Thank you for being here. And Bruce Sherman, Single Member District 02.
And Zach Ferguson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zach Ferguson. I represent Single Member District 07.
Peter Lynch.
Oh, you mean Peter Gosselin?
Oh, I'm sorry, Peter Gosselin. And Peter, we can't hear you that well.
Damn. You can't hear me now?
Barely.
I'm Peter Gosselin. I represent District 6, which is basically the west side of Connecticut Avenue. I'm sorry I can't be there with you, although these problems give me nightmares. I've tested positive for COVID for the last week, although I have no symptoms.
All right, thank you. And we do have a commissioner that's not with us tonight right now. Commissioner Zeldin is going to try to join as soon as he is able to. And to go over meeting procedures, we encourage all attendees virtual to mute yourselves. Make sure your device is on mute to avoid disruptions. In-person attendees, please wait to be recognized by the chair if you would like to make a comment. The meeting will follow the agenda in the times listed. During meetings, virtual attendees, please use the chat feature or the raise your hand feature to make a comment, and the chair will recognize you or the commissioner that is leading the discussion. We understand that sometimes issues may provoke strong emotions and that these expectations may sometimes be forgotten. The part of the chair's job is to remind the community of the norms of the meeting. Commissioner briefs on agenda items will be kept to 3 minutes with a 2-minute follow-up as needed. Resident briefs are given the same amount of time, 3 minutes with a 2-minute follow-up. Every resident will have the opportunity to be heard once on an issue before a resident is heard twice. And before we adopt the agenda, I do have 2 amendments. And I want to check with the commissioners to see if you guys got any amendments first. Y'all have any amendments to the agenda?
You mean amendments to the agenda?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Commissioner Gosselin.
Yes, if you can hear me, I'd like to amend the agenda to bring up the issue of a resolution involving bioretention basins. I've distributed a draft to the commissioners, and I think it's timely and it's something that we should handle tonight.
Okay. And I would like to amend the agenda to include my reimbursements for the ANC survey mailers, which is $260.96. Any other amendments to the agenda, commissioners? Okay, with that, I move we accept the agenda as amended. Can I get raised hands for the commissioners online? Thank you, commissioners. Okay, thank you. It carries.
6-0.
Yes. And on our consent agenda, we have minutes from October 23rd. Were those the ones that you just distributed? October
The 23rd ones I sent a week ago. I sent the September 11 ones today, but that may not have been enough time for people to look at it.
Okay.
What? I can't
Turn
hear
your
you.
mic on. She says.
Oh, I do need.
Yeah.
I do need. Does this help? Can you hear me now? No, it was not even on. But now you can hear me? Okay. I said that the minutes for September 11th were sent by me today. People probably haven't had a chance to see it. The 23rd was sent a week ago. People have seen that.
Okay, that's the only item we have on a consent agenda. Commissioners, can we move to adopt the consent agenda? Zach? Okay, 6-0. Thank you. And I want to take this time to welcome our two special guests. So Kent Bass is the Director of Office of ANC, and Kathy Williams is his Executive Assistant. They are here tonight to help us with the audio equipment. So thank you. This is a tough thing to tackle, and we're very grateful. I think, Kent, did they say this equipment is what, roughly how much money? How much is each combined? Was it 50 grand?
I think they're about $50,000 piece for the setup.
Wow. Okay. So thank you all for coming and helping us out. We really do appreciate it. We needed the help. Okay, so the first part of the agenda is the ANC 34G resident forum, which is an opportunity for anyone in person and online to discuss any issue that's not currently on the agenda. We have quite a few things on the agenda, but if there's anything that's urgent or pressing in the community that you guys want us to consider, we take this time to discuss that. So I'll open up the floor. If anyone in person has anything, come to the mic. If anyone online has anything, raise your hand.
Three quick questions. The first one is, when will the ANC release all of the survey data, not just the frequency distributions, but the raw data, so that people might be able to analyze them? That's one.
No.
Okay. Two, what measures were taken to make sure that residents were either in ANC 34G or outside of ANC 34G? Explain that to us, that'd be great. And then, do you have the geolocations of the takers of the survey?
Okay.
And just an aside, we collect petitions for Chevy Chase Boys every week outside of these buildings. And most of those people who come and speak to us are people who actually leave this building or leave the library. And I would guess that probably 9 out of 10 people don't know anything about this. They're shocked when they get information. And that, while we've gone to the trouble of doing this huge mail out and survey, I'm afraid that maybe there's a large segment of the community who is still unaware of the whole issue. That's all. Thank you.
So thank you. We'll take those questions up in the section on the survey, which is actually on the agenda. Any other items that are not on the agenda for the community? Okay, anyone online? Awesome. And I'm just looking at Elizabeth McPike's comment. She said ANC commissioners are very clear, thank you, but could you please repeat questions from the audience? So Elizabeth, just to let you know, and I think there's one other person in the audience, Mary Rouse, that wants to speak. The question was, when will the ANC release the raw data, not just the aggregate level data of the survey? what steps did we take to ensure residents were from 3-4G or outside of 3-4G? And if there was any geolocating of the survey respondents. Okay, Mary, do you want to go on and speak?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Lisa, I wanted to ask if the ANC could return the chat function to these online meetings. It's long overdue. I don't think there's anybody on this group of 48 people. I don't know how many are in the audience. Could you give me an idea how many are in the audience?
Probably about 15 or so.
Well, we've got 48 people online, and I would imagine that every single one of these people would like to be able to talk with each other online, and I'm asking you and the commission to restore the chat function to these online meetings. That's my first comment. The second one is about the zoning meeting on Thursday night, and I realize that is an agenda item, but I wanted to ask a question in advance for you, Lisa. I understand that you received an email from the of Joel Lawson on perhaps the 18th of October, and that you shared it with your fellow commissioners on the 20th about this November 9th hearing that nobody else seemed to know about. Did you in fact notify the community that this meeting was going to be happening? And if not, why not? So that's my other statement.
Okay, so I'll address question number one. Question number two will be addressed under the agenda item for the zoning, which is a discussion of the zoning commission case. But regarding the first question about restoring the chat, so just to make sure everybody was aware, the commission agreed to disable the chat, quite honestly, because the comments were highly inappropriate that were being made about community members, personal comments about people, regardless of what their position was on the affordable housing issue. So all of this occurred around this discussion of affordable housing. As chair, I will not tolerate that. I'm just going to tell you point blank. I am not going to have a member of the community come to a community meeting, be berated in the chat, which at the time we published online. It is unfair to them as a member of this community to have someone Google their name and see a nasty comment that another community made about them. That is horrendous conduct. And we were having that in this ANC repeatedly. There are chats that I still have not released because of that. And members of the community were literally putting somebody's name in that. So it wasn't somebody just saying, oh, you're a bad person. They would say, John is a bad person. So you could easily identify who that person was. And that is wholly unfair. So I will, though, have a discussion with the commission, but I'm going to tell you now, if I see that, the chat is going to immediately come down. It's up to this community to act in a way that encourages everyone to have a civil conversation. And I am highly amenable for that. I want you guys to discuss things in the chat. It's much easier for us as a commission when you can send, chats to various people without us having to go in and repeat your chat. So it's more work on us to have the chat disabled. But just personally as a chair, I'm going to protect people's safety. And in terms of making sure that they're safe online and they're safe in the community, that is something that I have to look out for. So Mary, to answer your conversation, I will have a conversation with the commission at an administrative meeting. We'll go back over this. We'll see where we are as a community, and we'll see if we can do that. But it's really up to the community. And I'm just not going to allow that. And I know these conversations, as I mentioned in the meeting rules, have gotten very heated. I know everybody is passionate on both sides, and I know that stems from love of the community, but we cannot berate each other. I mean, we're gonna be here regardless of what happens to this building, regardless of it being built, not built, remodeled, not remodeled. We all have to live here. And we see each other. I see you all walking down Western Avenue and I holler out the car. I see you guys all the time. I see everybody here in the community. And, that's what we have to keep in mind. We're community and we have to stay that way. So, but I will take it up, Mary, but I do want the community to know what is behind that chat coming down. And
Lisa,
we've said this several times before. And even after we said it before, we've had, things put back in the chat. So I encourage you also to talk to your fellow community members. You guys know who's putting stuff in the chat, talk to them and make
Lisa,
sure they're on board with this.
can I just add one other thing, that the Raise Committee is engaging in a lot of name calling and name shaming on their meetings that are publicly recorded and available online right now to be seen. And I think a number of people are pretty upset about that. Naming people in the community by name, and it's inappropriate and it should stop. So
I agree. And I have talked to the co-chairs of that committee. And the committee, we have spoken about that as well. You're 100% correct.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, any more community comments? Everyone's like, no. All right, we'll move on. So the big topic, the discussion and update on the ANC Civic Core survey. And I'm gonna turn this shortly over to Commissioner Sherman to give you a big update, but thank you everybody. We had a tremendous response rate. I am grateful for every response, regardless of how you all answered. The ANC, as you know, it took us a little time to come around to doing this survey, but we did it. And we did it because we believed we needed to give you guys that input and we needed to hear your thoughts on this particular topic. So we got a tremendous amount of responses. And Bruce, I'll just ask that you keep in mind the 3 questions that were asked by Cheryl when you're giving your update.
Yeah, I've got Cheryl's questions.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. We're very happy to be able to present the first round of results from the survey. Keep in mind, it closed last night at midnight, which all of you know. So we all saw the final results at 12:01 and have been looking at the results today and generated a series of reports which have been posted to the ANC website. So I also want to echo Lisa's comments and thank everybody in the community for taking part in the survey. We had 2,836 responses. This is by orders of magnitude the largest survey that the ANC has ever done. I don't know, our director of the Office of the Advisory Neighborhood Commissions is here, and he might be able to comment on surveys done elsewhere across the city, but it is a very large scale effort that the community bought into and participated in at scale, and we're very grateful for that. Just imagine if you were to have 2,836 11 to 12-minute conversations with people. Many people took a lot longer, but the average length to take the survey was 11 minutes and 23 seconds. So if you were to sit down with someone and have a conversation about this place for 11 minutes, and you were to have 2,836 of those, that's what we're talking about. Put it in perspective, right? It's not just a survey, you go online, it's actually people thinking a lot about their responses and informing themselves about the issues and then taking the survey. So what we're going to do tonight is give you kind of a first glimpse at this. We don't have enough time to go into all of the detail on it. We are looking at scheduling a special meeting a week from tonight that will be just on the survey. And between now and then, with the survey reports that we posted and others that we intend to post up at the website, you'll have ample opportunity to look at everything. And then yourselves come fully prepared to ask more questions, and we can parse the data and we can go into much greater depth and detail. So there are a lot of things about the survey that we probably can't go into tonight given the agenda here that's on the agenda. But what I wanted to do is go through the summary report and touch on the high points, familiarize you with what in the main we have seen, what the survey says, and then take any questions around that. So we're all about tonight talking about what the survey says, not what we say about the survey. Not what the survey means, what it means for anything the commission might do down the road. Those are critically important questions, but they're not the questions for tonight. Tonight is simply, you've spoken. We want to hear what you're saying via the survey. What have you said? And that's what this is about, reporting that back to you. Does that make sense? Why don't I start though, Cheryl, with your question just quickly. Geolocating participants. We can't geolocate down to where a house or somebody lives. If you have an IP address, you have a general idea where somebody is, but you can't pinpoint where they are. We asked, as all of you who took the survey know, for the participants, the respondents, to identify where they reside. We added the notion here of being very specific about the SMD, the single member district, and we gave people a little link if they didn't know which district they lived in. They could put their address in and it would tell them which district they were in. That was a required question. Everybody answered that question. So what we have is copious data on where people reside. We took the survey, but we can't pinpoint them. We can't geolocate them in that exact sense. In terms of releasing the full data set, that's something that we'll take a look at doing. Certainly want to be completely transparent about it. The question about the modality about it and how we would do it, and it resides in SurveyMonkey itself, and so the analytics, the data tabulation, the quality control checks that we're using reside on that platform. So to explore all the functionality of it, you need to be on the platform. But so I'm just processing your question in real time and thinking about how we could make that work. I don't know, but we'll think about it. And you maybe had third question.
Yes, well, actually, maybe back out of it.
Yeah.
Anybody can say, oh,
Yeah, right.
But do you have any data that shows which SMUs really answer? I heard that you can manage in your SMD. Now, I'm just wondering if your SMD had a better turnaround.
Well, we have on the survey, as you've seen, we published the results by SND. And so what the ANC as a whole did, which was critically important, was to send out a mailer that went out to everybody, the 15,000 residents of the ANC, to let them know that the survey was live and how to take the survey. As you also know, there were a number of people who were not able to take the survey online, so we offered to administer a paper copy. And I think all told, we have about 30 paper copies. I have the large retirement facility, Millwood, and we offered to do a special session at Millwood a couple Saturdays ago in the morning. And we did, and 24 people thereabouts took the survey at that time, which was great. I know Commissioner Mash administered a half dozen surveys to people. He had the contact information, people could call and ask for that. So we put out the notice, we publicized it on listserv, Chevy Chase Chatter, and so forth and so on. I think the fact that we have such a strong response here is indicative of the fact that most people got the word that were interested in taking the survey. In the ANC, about 95, 96% of all residents have internet access, have broadband. So at the end of the day, an online survey did not create any significant impediment. And with the paper surveys, we again reached out to those who needed extra help. Just in terms of additional promotion, all the commissioners promoted the survey in their own way. I did take some of the extra flyers that we had, and we put a little sticker on those, and my wife and I walked them around on Saturday morning for 5 hours and gave them to everybody. I probably got another 100 responses from that at the last minute, and also additional emailing. But you know, it's something, whatever time people have. I'm not betting on you asking about it. I'm simply saying it's something that people can do. So anyway, why don't we walk through the survey? Does that answer your question, though? Okay. Why don't we walk through it and give everybody a chance to, again, if you hasn't seen it, to become familiar with it, but they are up at the website, right? This is up.
Yep.
And so we can take a look at that. So if we can share my screen, I will.
There it goes.
So this is the, we've sent out a number of the reports. This is the overall summary report with all of the 2,836 responses calculated. And as you know, those of you, I trust all of you took the survey, so you saw this very first question asking you where you resided. And this is the result of that. I'll come down to the table, and maybe if we can get something out of the way. There we go. Look, that's on my screen. It is on another, because it's slightly in the way. I don't know if that's box. The video. At any rate, we'll make sure we've got to make this work. Yeah, is that possible? Slide that to the side. There we go. Brilliant.
Oh,
Okay, so this tallies up all the responses by single member districts. And again, it gives us an idea, of course, where people are. We were very concerned within the ANC itself to have this information so that each commissioner would understand his or her constituents, what their views were on the questions on the survey. We opened the survey up to all members of the broader community. Obviously, those who are not in our ANC, but in DC, and those outside of DC, we asked everybody to identify, and we think that people did that. They didn't say they lived in SND 02. If they didn't live in SND 02, they had an opportunity to say that they lived in Washington, but not in the ANC. And you can see that 459 people indicated that. And 80 people indicated they lived outside of DC altogether. So that was question number one on the survey. Question number two, the type of housing, mostly single family houses. This will vary by SMD, of course. So those here, 5, 6, 7, close to the Connecticut Avenue, obviously have a greater percentage of apartments. Those of us that are over closer to the park, it's mostly single family homes, and mostly single family homes in the ANC. I will say as we're going through this, something that you should bear in mind, and that we can talk about more next Monday. We have the full demographic census data for ANC 34G broken down by single member district. So we can compare the demographic data that we got from the survey against the demographic data that comes from the Census Bureau to see how closely the respondents to the survey represent the population at large. And so we can walk through that a little bit on, it's way down in the weeds. We can talk about that a little bit more next week. It's fair to say, though, in a survey of this kind, this survey represents the people who took it, right? It wasn't a random sample. We didn't do a sample that was a statistically valid sample of the 15,000 residents of Chevy Chase and select 250 people to represent the 15,000. That we could have done, but it was a completely different type of survey. For this community, we wanted all of you to have an opportunity to weigh in, not just select, as you can imagine, 250 or 300 people to take the survey. So that means then that the people who took it are the ones that this survey represents. So we'll go through it. The owner in your home, mostly owners. I won't spend a lot of time on these because I think they're somewhat self-evident. I'll spend a little time here. Age is interesting in a number of different ways. Previous ANC surveys have skewed slightly older in terms of the population of people who take the surveys. This one has done this a little bit as well, but the important thing to understand is we have a slightly older population in Chevy Chase as well. So the extent to which this mirrors the actual age of the population is something we can talk about a little bit more next Monday. But we had a very healthy showing of people in the 36 to 45 and 46 to 55. You can see what the actual percentages and numbers are here. And there are some who prefer not to give their age. In terms of children at home, 35% of the respondents indicated that they had children 18 or under living with them at home. And that tracks pretty true to the demographic data. I've had a chance to look at that, and that's pretty much on target. So we had a good representation of families responding to the survey. Interestingly, on the gender side, the men in our community lag behind here. So you take a look at this, there's some interesting anecdotal reports that I can give you on this. And this is true across SNDs. So there isn't one SMD where all the guys decided they would turn out and take the survey. It's generally the case across the ANC on this survey that women participate in public hiring than men. Now, when I asked about this in some of my travels in my SMD, what I heard, and this is completely anecdotal, just a few conversations. So don't make more of this than I intend. And that is that they said, well, yeah, I took it, but I took it for both of us. So there was a little bit of that going on, where a couple in a household would have a conversation, one of them would take a survey. We have a lot of households, though, looking at the individual responses both took the survey. Husband and wife took the survey, or man and woman took the survey. So anyway, but you can see that it's significant here, how it tilts towards female response, 56 to essentially 39%. Yeah.
Correlate the hundreds of people. Did that happen to the age that people respond to?
That's true. That's a good point, and it's something we can take a look at in terms of age we can take a closer look at that to see. But you're right. Although demographically in our ANC, the census data show that it's pretty much 51 female, 49 male. So we're not close here on that. Okay. Those who identify as Hispanic, just relatively a few, 4.4% in the community. And then race, we know that it's overwhelmingly a white population in Chevy case. African Americans were on the survey, 4.67%. Demographically in Chevy Chase, the African American population is around 10.5. And in Lisa's district, in my district, it's about 12%. So we have more Black families in our districts than the other SMDs, but lower participation. Okay, before I get into this, I will say that in terms of what our analytical capabilities are, with the demographic data we have, we can do any number, almost an infinite number of correlations. So if you want to see how any of these variables lines up with responses, then we can do that. We could spend weeks doing that. There are some interesting things that we could look forward to doing, and things I think that would be helpful, not only in terms of understanding this survey, but understanding the community's attitudes more broadly. This is a rich data set that will offer us insights going forward in a lot of different ways beyond the immediate purpose. Okay, so after those 8 demographic questions, we got into questions 9 through 24, which were the substantive questions, and they were broken out into different sections. And the first question, of course, is perhaps the big question that gets at the heart of what DC is proposing to do, which is to redevelop the community center library to incorporate housing, including affordable housing. And we asked you essentially what you thought about it, right? So which of the responses best express your view about the initiative? And the response categories were: I support the proposed redevelopment. I support only redevelopment of community center library, including the possibility of renovating the facilities, not tearing them down and building new ones necessarily. I don't support any redevelopment. I don't have enough information. I don't feel sufficiently informed, or I have no preference. You can see the results. 40% of people are in favor of the city's proposed redevelopment of the community center library. 47% are in favor of just redeveloping the current facilities that would, again, potentially include renovation. And 9% say they don't support any development at all. Right? Now, this is the overall response, 2,836 responses. So it includes everybody. We parse the data. It's up at the website by ANC participants only, and then we parse it by non-ANC participants. In other words, people who live in DC but not in the ANC, and people who live outside of DC. So you can take a look at those online. I won't jump around here. I've got them up. It's going to take you long, and it's a little confusing. But this is the overall take, right? The second question. This was in essence a surplusing question. We did not use the word surplus or surplusing because it's, for some people, confusing and it involves more explanation. We thought the simplest thing that we landed on was the question as we put it, that the community center library site public land, and to move forward with public housing on public land. By law, DC has to declare at least a portion of the property no longer needed for public purpose or for public use. And then it would proceed in that context then to sell at least that portion to private developer, for-profit or non-profit to carry out the project. And we asked, do you support it? And you can see the results. So it's essentially 59 to 32 saying no, they don't. And then 10%, sorry, 8% saying they don't, again, feeling sufficiently informed to have it, right? Now, I want to underscore a couple of things. At the very end of the survey, we had an open-ended, as you know, we took it, opportunity for people to say whatever they wanted about the survey. And that would be an opportunity to comment on any individual question. The question wasn't framed right, I didn't understand it, you didn't have a response category that met my needs or my concerns. We have 1,122 responses that are not, by and large, about the methodology or the questions of the survey. There are some, rather, there are more comments amplifying people's views about this proposed development. But there are in the comments some about the questions that we will take on board and study how well the questions worked in terms of capturing the responses that people feel represent their views. When you do a survey, you want to make sure the response categories are aligned with how people are thinking about the issues that they look at and say, I don't see myself in the question. We didn't get a lot of feedback of people saying, I did not see myself in the question. I didn't have a response category that fit my needs. We haven't seen that, but we're still looking at it. But I just want you to know that we're very attentive to this because we spent months developing the survey instrument. And those of you who participated in it know we went through multiple question iterations. We took lots of feedback. We tested it in the survey with 22, 23 testers in the beta phase. We took their comments on board, and then we arrived at the survey that we have here. Yes, sure.
When you beta tested, were the results similar to what you're seeing on the grand scale?
So the question is, if you couldn't hear it, when we did the beta test, were the results similar to what we're seeing now in the final results? God's honest truth, I can't remember exactly.
I don't think they were. I don't think it was as spread. I think they're a little bit closer together. Yeah, I don't think from what I remember of the beta test.
Yeah. Again, I just can't right off hand recall. In any event, as we go down through the survey, then there were other questions, and I would have to say that this particular question, given, I don't want to say the inherent complexity, it's not infinitely complex. People seem to answer the question without a lot of trouble, but you had to think about this. You know, you say you have 15 points, how would you allocate those points across these elements of any redevelopment of the site? And this is what the community has said. It has stressed a new or renovated library, a new or renovated community center. And you can see how it works. We can come down and show it to you in greater detail in terms of the points that were assigned, right? That gives you a little bit more granularity there. And interestingly, we had parking figures in the survey in a couple of different places. And many people have felt that if there isn't underground parking here for any redevelopment going forward, that that would be a deficiency, because where do people park, right? Parking is a problem. But anyway, here, as people are allocating points, parking is not the priority. So this is important for obviously for any development, any design going forward to have all this in mind. And then we asked about issues that might be attendant to any redevelopment, including infrastructure, schools, transportation, those sorts of things, to allow people to weigh in on these. We winnowed down this list of issues from 7 or 8 that we had before during the testing to the 5 that made it onto the survey. And you can see the #1 concern of everyone is that the scale and style of development be consistent with the neighborhood. And of course, in survey research of this sort, you see responses that echo what you hear every day on the street. from different people, whatever they have, whatever the response might be, not just that people would like to see the development be in sync with the neighborhood, but other things about infrastructure and whatnot. But that's all anecdotal until you do a survey and you ask a wide number of people and you get this kind of information to put the issues in perspective. How big of an issue is it for the overall community? How big of an issue is parking? The survey gives us really good information on that. And you can see here, parking is not here that huge of an issue. And we won't go through all of this right now for the next question, but you can get the gist of it. Now we're going to get into amenities, and there are a lot of these, and I don't really want to take a lot of time on this part of it. I'll kind of go through this in terms of what people are looking for. The bars indicate fairly clearly what people's preferences were. These are outdoor amenities. So a lot of people wanted green space, they wanted outdoor seating, and they wanted places where they could be part of nature, mature trees, you can see. And again, surface parking and parking, this is when we ask people to choose up to 7, right? So you got 7 choices here. So there was plenty of opportunity to put parking at the top if people wanted to do that, and that wasn't the case. I'm not picking on parking, I'm just pointing it out. And then we asked about indoor amenities at the community center. And you can see auditorium, and it's fairly straightforward. Obviously free Wi-Fi, a multi-purpose room, so forth and so on. Again, you can take time and study these responses by looking at the surveys online at the website. And then similarly, we asked about the library. How you envision using it, these types of activities, what would you be prioritized? Yeah, I know. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this stuff because we could take a lot of time. They are, the surveys are online. I do want to cover some of the other issues that have been top of mind for a lot of people related to height and density on the site, which have generated lots of community comment. So very simple question, what's the maximum building height you would support for the community center or library site? And you can see the majority of responses on 5 stories or fewer.
I'd just like to clarify, a lot of times when they say stories, they don't include the house, they don't include the ground floor. So can you please really clarify what exactly is?
That's why we put the feet on there. That's why we put the feet, indicated the number of feet, right? So that's the maximum height. And the stories were approximate. That's why we say 4 to 5, just to give you an idea, right? So at the community center library site, the new proposed zoning would allow a structure as tall as 80 feet. And in the background information that we provided for the survey, you can click on a link at the top of the survey and read background. We have that information in there. So we worked around that effectively to say that it's only going to be as high as 80 feet, everything in. So we didn't go up to 90 or 100 because that wasn't even in the offering, right? And so from there, we just stepped it down in increments of 10 feet. It was pretty straightforward in that regard. And then indicated the stories just to give people kind of a visual cue if you have in mind what if 4 or 5 stories, right? In terms of the density, most people preferred a configuration that would be taller and provide for more green space. Green space and open space throughout the survey, as you've seen, has figured very prominently. People favor the green space, the open space. So when given a choice, they prefer a taller building that provides more green space as opposed to a shorter, wider building that provides less green space. And then, of course, we provided the option for those who simply said, I just prefer things the way they are. That's the yellow one, right? That's the yellow one. Okay, when we get into affordable housing, we had 3 different questions. Again, we were going off of what we've already understood would be the standard or the minimum of affordable housing here at the community center or library site. DemPet has already indicated that it would be 30% minimum of affordable housing here. So we departed from that basis and gave the option of increasing that amount of affordable housing to reflect people's concerns about the properties needing to have more housing, more affordable housing than the minimum. And you can see where things fell out. We asked preferences as to the type of units, from studio apartments to 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3+ bedrooms, so that you can indicate on the survey what your preferences would be here. We've heard a lot in terms of affordable housing, that it should favor families, workforce housing, in particular, so that teachers and firefighters, police who work in the area and need assistance to live in the area, that have children, cannot live in a studio. So if the affordable housing units are all studio units, for many people, that would defeat the purpose of putting affordable housing in if it's workforce housing, unless they're simply single person households, right? So we wanted to be able to reflect that. And we went through here a number of question iterations and finally just decided that we would give people an opportunity to check all that apply. And that's what the folks did. Right? And you can see the allocations, the responses. Okay. And then finally on affordable housing, which should be the primary populations, income level, for affordable housing at a redeveloped community center and library site. And we reminded people about the fact that we're talking about median family income, and it's a percentage of that. And obviously the 152,100 for a family of 4, 106,400 for a single person household. Tried to be as clear as we could as to what we were talking about here. Keeping in mind, when we're developing these questions again, we went round and round and round on how to explain affordable housing, how to make it simple without going into infinite detail. It was not easy, and these questions were revised 1,000 times. So this is what we finally settled on. And again, we have the data to indicate that it was understandable. Keep in mind, we had a 91% completion rate on this survey. 91%. It's extraordinarily high. And that tells us that the survey was not too difficult for people to do. Some people did drop out. Some people kind of raced through and answered only the questions they wanted to answer. That's not unusual. But by and large, folks got it. And you can see the preference for workforce households here that are up to 8% of median family income.
Responsible.
Because you can check all of what? You can check multiple of these if you wish to emphasize a couple different categories. We didn't force you to choose on this. Okay. The rest of the questions are things that are probably not as, well, they're pertinent, obviously, but don't have the same salience as other questions. Yes, if there's a redeveloped site, the ANC would have offices. That's a nice thing. But other organizations in the community also can have offices in the redeveloped community center. And retail, that would be like a cafe. Would that be acceptable to people? Yes, that would be acceptable. And finally, underground parking. Back to this again. Would you use it? We didn't ask people, do you think it's a good idea? But would you use it? That was the question. And you can see it's evenly split. So it's interesting in terms of the feedback we get to do a better question. You know, it's sort of like throw darts at the board kind of thing. And then lastly, again, we gave people the opportunity to say whatever they wanted. And 1,122 people did. About 40% of the respondents took the time to write a comment. So that is the summary of all the data. So just to reiterate, up at the website is the data representing only the ANC. So if you want to know what only members of this particular community, the 15,000 residents of Chevy Chase, said about these questions, that survey's up. And if you want to know what those who are not in the ANC, but in DC and outside of DC, what they said, and how their responses lined up, that study is up as well. So we've already provided all of that. Now, we've also already parsed the data by SND. All the commissioners have their own reports for their particular SNDs. They have them not only in terms of summary data, they have the responses. so they can read the responses. They just got this a few hours ago, and they're looking at it and reading it. So with that, I think we'll stop and answer any questions. That all makes sense to everybody? Is that reasonably good? Okay. And I don't know if we have questions here or questions online, Lisa. I don't know if we have any questions.
I don't see any here. We got one right
Yeah,
there.
On comments, it was 100 characters loud. Can you see the comments that people wrote that were much longer than that, like the new balance?
Yeah, there are. Yeah, so it's interesting. We did set a limitation on the 100 characters, and there is something that is a glitch in SurveyMonkey that let some people go beyond that. But I've looked at all the responses, and nobody wrote a novella.
Yeah.
The responses are a little bit longer than that, but they're not volumes. So yeah, when I tried to do it, I couldn't go behind 100 characters. So I don't know. I'll have to ask SurveyMonkey what happened. Yeah, right.
Just a question to clarify, I put the survey on my.
Right.
And, so they would complete it on.
Right.
I don't know, now, the main difference between the iPhone and the PC is.
Yeah.
So the text entries on text. I was able basically the positive communication. Do you know how many surveys were filled out? In this on the phone, device.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think I've thought about this a lot. If we had it to do the next time we do a survey, if it doesn't make the survey so long, and people get tired of answering questions, how they took the survey, how they heard about the survey, some of that basic data would be very helpful for us in terms of how we plan to administer future surveys. Fortunately, and I regret the situation you had, fortunately, we didn't have that many instances of people who couldn't complete it. Again, it was a 91% completion rate. You know, there were some factors. And when you design this SurveyMonkey, again, there's an infinite variety of ways you can set this up, allowing people to go back and jump around and do different things. And it's, yeah, so that's the summary. Yes, ma'am. Well, several things. First of all, the community center is used by people who are not in this area. Secondly, when you do a public survey of this nature, it's public and people can take the survey. We, to be honest, studied different ways of limiting access to the survey, but thought they were not appropriate for a public survey. You can password the survey, you can limit it to certain IP addresses, but that defeats the purpose of having the public weigh in. Our answer to that was, again, to ask people to identify where they live. And to the point of data integrity, we don't see in the data that people gamed the system and talked about living in a given SND when they didn't. You don't see inflated numbers for the SNDs. They don't see skewed demographic profiles for the SNDs. They are pretty much what you would think they would be, given the population and the data that we have from the Census Bureau. So the folks that don't live in the ANC, by and large, 459 or whatever it is, they said they don't live in the ANC. Yeah. Sure.
We got one on.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that I have to say that I live outside of the ANC. But I don't think that means my vote should be counted differently. In that I live 3 blocks out of the ANC. I'm here all the time. Exercise classes, I just dropped off books at the library. I've lived here for 4 years. This is a neighborhood where I worship, where I shop, where I use facilities. And the fact that I live outside of the ANC doesn't mean that my vote doesn't count as much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Closer to the commissioners.
I'm sorry, I didn't get my.
Many of your constituents are way too far away to help out.
So one interesting thing, and that is that I can say this for Lisa's constituents also live kind of a far away. Some live a mile away, my SND, by the park, Rock Creek Park. And I would simply say that we had almost 500 people and my SMD take this survey. And they didn't take it because they didn't care. They took it because they did care. They took it because they were given an opportunity to make their voice heard. We asked them numerous times to do that. They stepped up, they took it, and they feel very strongly about the community center and library as a place of community gathering for everybody. No, I know. No, I certainly understand your point. I do, and I just want to say that whether they're a mile away or 3 blocks away, people call this area here kind of home. Yeah.
Okay, let me go to online. Question was asked, will the ANC be sharing the 1,100 comments put at the end of the survey with the public?
Yeah, we'll share the comments, certainly. The only, and I would say this about the comments, people were, I say without exception, respectful. There were a few untoward comments I saw. However, I think we're all adults. We can put those in context.
Okay. So if you guys don't mind, we'll move on to the next topic. We're going to reconvene on Monday. So please look out for the meeting announcement. We publicly are announcing it here, but I'll also put it by the end of tonight on the listserv. So Mary Rouse, do not go to bed. On the listserv. And we also posted on Chevy Chase Chatter, our Facebook, next door. So we will come back and we'll work on getting the meeting space. Peter Gosselin, if you could help with that. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Bruce, for the summary. We have a couple more things. We're not too far behind. Discussion of zoning commission case 2325. That is Commissioners Gosselin and Lynch. And while you guys are keying up for that, let me go back to Mary Rouse's question to me on that topic. So we did get, me and Peter Gosselin got an email from Joel Lawson, and I don't know the date. It could have been the 18th. But that email was not a confirmation of the hearing. I can't remember how it was worded, but it was basically like, I believe the hearing is going to take place on November 9th. I searched and I sent the commissioners actually a video of me searching both my commissioner email and the ANC email box. We never received an official response from Office of Zoning or notification of that hearing. The only thing that I got in the ANC email was that email from Joel. And that was just, it really wasn't, an official confirmation. It was him saying, I think, pretty much the hearing is going to be on the 9th. Peter Gosselin.
I just follow on. Can you hear me? There was some problem early about my being heard. I just follow on to say the zoning commission during its hearing acknowledged there was a notification problem. The zoning commission said it was the Office of Planning's responsibility to let us know. And the Office of Planning representative at the meeting said, oh, we thought it was the zoning commission's responsibility. We did hear about it in the end, and we got, we tried to get some comments into them, but I mean, it was basically, we weren't let know about it. And so and that's a problem. I think it was actually an honest mistake. I mean, there are many mistakes that aren't. And I know there's a great deal of distrust about this issue, but I think this was an honest mistake by the city.
Okay. So did you all, Gosselin and Lynch, you want to go on and proceed on this part of the agenda?
So I just say that the zoning commission did hold a hearing. The proposal that the Office of Planning described to the zoning commission is as we have heard it from the Office of Planning here at ANC meetings. The Office of Planning has reduced the total potential height building at the Convention Center Libraries to 70 feet and has reduced the maximum permitted lot occupancy from 80% to 60%. I think the only surprises, if there were any, about the presentation by the Office of Planning was that they are proposing some slight change in residential zoning on the parking lot for PNC and the parking lot for the CVS. And this is something that I don't think I'm very clear about. And also the back of the parking lot at the Safeway. And we're going to have to clarify that. The zoning commission took 2 votes at the hearing the 9th. One to absolve themselves of the notification problem, and the other to set down for public hearing sometime in presumably early 2024 the proposals by the zoning commission by the Office of Planning for these 2 new zones for Upper Connecticut Avenue. I mean, that's the end of my report.
Okay, Commissioner Lynch, did you have anything to add on that?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Any comments from the community? Ron, you want to go to? Can you go to the mic? Mhm. And can you speak up on that mic?
I'll stay.
Okay.
I mean, my understanding, the ANC report, of course, wishes to first, not the condition said, we, as they proceeded to do to approve the next step. And can the ANC speak to that?
Sure, Ron, I wrote that resolution and I was surprised as the other commissioners about this recent development, and we are going to try to learn more, but we did ask them to pause any actions on rezoning before the survey came out, and I think we've been very consistent about asking to be included in every step of the way. And I know the other commissioners have asked for the same. So, yes, you're right.
Chair,
Yeah.
just also to note that several of us did sign a letter to the zoning commission ahead of the hearing, their meeting, to protest their moving forward, given the resolutions that Ron Collins just referenced that Commissioner Lynch had authored, and others on the commission had authored. There were 3 resolutions from this year that speak to the need for cooperation with the city agencies, engagement by the city agencies. The resolutions have frankly pleaded with the city to await the end of the ANC's own community engagement, including the survey, before moving forward. And so we noted that in the letter that was sent the day before the hearing, and it was evident of the record. And the zoning commission chair, Anthony Hood, acknowledged this. And again, as Commissioner Gosselin has noted, acknowledged the technical deficiency. I'm one who believes that our ANC should protest this further. I think it's an outrage when any government agency exonerates itself. It says, "Oh, we made a mistake, but it's okay because we can say we made a mistake, and that's okay." I don't think it's okay, particularly when the ANCs are created to provide the opportunity for citizens to have feedback in a process that's stipulated, that's clear. And in this particular case, we had understood from OP's own presentations in May and June that for this particular hearing, the zoning commission would give us the opportunity to weigh in, and the zoning commission did not issue notification. So it's an issue, it's a problem. And here we are in the midst of continuing the consultation with the community to get the feedback. So I'm one who believes that we should protest in whatever way is appropriate. And so I just put that on the table.
Okay. Let me go to two audience members, then you. So Ellen McCarthy, Mary Rouse, then you. Ellen?
Okay. I just wanted to be clear that what the zoning commission had on Monday was not a hearing. It was a public meeting. In public meetings, the zoning commission just makes decisions. They do not hear from anyone. The only the only provision that's made to comment on whether or not a zoning proposal should be set down for a public hearing is if an ANC votes with a duly noticed meeting and a quorum and passes a formal resolution that asks for the public hearing or that asks for the proposed zoning not to be set down for a public hearing. 3 individual commissioners from the ANC submitted a letter and other individuals submitted a letter, but those would not by the zoning regulations be considered salient to the issue of set down. What the zoning commission said in examining the issue of notice is that there won't be a hearing until sometime in 2024, months and months from now. So they recognized that the ANC would be able to conclude its survey, issue a report, and then testify at the public hearing where the ANC would get great weight by virtue of the DC regulations. So all the zoning commission was doing wasn't ignoring the opportunity for the community to comment. The community's opportunity to comment is at a public hearing. And there will be lots of opportunity to comment on that at the public hearing. The way the zoning regulations are written, there's actually a bias in favor of setting down anything that is proposed to the zoning commission. If the zoning commission turns down a project or a proposal for a public hearing, they have to have a greater majority than simply a majority of who is present at the time. That it's based on a philosophy that everybody deserves a chance to comment on what is proposed, whether they oppose it or not. And the opportunity to comment on that is at the public hearing.
There's just one addendum that I would make to this. The great weight attaches again to any resolution that is passed by the ANC at a duly noticed meeting, as you just mentioned. We had 3 resolutions that were passed by the ANC. And so in this case, there were already resolutions on the books asking the Office of Planning, asking DEMPED, asking the city to hold off until we had completed our community consultations. So those are the ones I'm referring to. And if the ANC had been duly informed by the zoning commission, the ANC could have considered yet another resolution in anticipation of the set down. So I'm simply pointing that out and saying that the process needs to work as the process is meant to work.
Right, I would just say
Mary
those
Rouse, then
resolutions
this young
that were
lady.
passed were not directed specifically at the zoning commission and specifically at the issue of set down. They were sort of broadly saying, we'd like to wait on action on this until the survey is done. So the survey is done and we'll have plenty of time to analyze that before the public hearing takes place this winter.
My name is Amy Terrace, and I watched the zoning commission hearing, and I was really surprised. My recollection is that the chairman specifically said that there was no resolution. He referenced your letter and said there is no resolution before them. like, as if it wasn't there right at that second, so they just kind of moved on. And so can you please clarify whether or not you shared this resolution, because I really was confused by the statements of the. So,
No, I don't know why our resolution was disregarded.
thank you. And then one other thing, it has been pointed out by somebody who's very fastidious and who's, you know, work I respect, that the meeting is actually for a rulemaking meeting, which limits public input as opposed to a public hearing. I've been hearing you say public hearing, but it's actually my understanding that it was set down for rulemaking, which further limits public input. Is that true? Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if any of the commissioners can explain the technical differences in rulemaking versus a public hearing. It has a tendency to be a little bit more limited.
But it's certainly something we need to find out more about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's contested.
Could I ask a question?
Standing is the 8 of the.
Cheryl, you might want to go to the microphone so folks on Zoom can hear you.
And could I ask a question? I guess commissioners aren't able to ask.
Rulemaking is exactly as Amy described it. Contested hearing is where there is a full pathway of representative voices in the community speaking about their objections or their feelings about it, one way or the other. And also my understanding is that 8 of the opportunity sites in the SAP qualified for that rulemaking set down, but this one does not. Don't know the specifics why, but this one absolutely should be a contested hearing. That's all.
Okay. Let me go to Mary Rouse, then Andrea Rosen, then Commissioner Ferguson.
Thank you, Lisa. I also want to express my outrage at the incredibly shabby treatment this community was how we were treated by Anthony Hood and Robert Miller, in particular on the zoning commission. I am not willing to apologize or give them any slack on their behavior Thursday night. It was outrageous and disrespectful. And Anthony Hood actually engaged in a rant against this, against Ward 3. It was entirely inappropriate what he did. It was also entirely inappropriate that they set this down as a rulemaking and not a contested case, based on what I know from an attorney letter that I saw that explained the difference, and that some of the issues relate to the fact that this is all one piece of land, that it's got one owner, the city, and that contested cases also shut people out. And I don't think anybody in this community wants to be shut out of this process. And I hope that this ANC will engage in a timeline, create a timeline on all of this. I think it would be very helpful if somebody could do that. I'm looking at you, Bruce. But anyway, somebody who could basically put a timeline on all the different things that were done, when things were said. Joel Lawson appeared at an ANC meeting after 11 p.m. one night, where he announced the new names for these two zones. And most people weren't on that call. Most people didn't know that happened. And I think that there's a big problem with how this whole thing has happened. And I think we need to document it and put it before the zoning commission. What they did was wrong, and it was arrogant and very dismissive of the needs of this community and the rights that we're entitled to have in this process. So I am not quick. I do not want to excuse their behavior. I think it needs to be challenged, and I hope that that will be done. And I hope this ANC will be part of that challenge and document what was said and what was sent, and including that question I asked you earlier, Lisa, about the email and what was the content of that email. If you can share the content of the email that you got from Joel Lawson, I think that's very important, because remember, folks, these that's the 3 secret meetings that were held in 2022, and the last one on February 14th of 2023 about these very zones. The city has been very, very deceptive and it has withheld information about these zones. In fact, as people probably know, in the draft and in the final SAP, these zones were vaguely mentioned. The last paragraph, the last page of the draft plan, and the last paragraph or so and last pages of the final plan of the Chevy Chase SAP. And it seems to me now, in looking at it, that the Office of Planning was entirely dishonest and deceptive about their intentions here. And not to mention the fact that in the 11th hour, there was a presentation by members of this community who wanted to push for these special zones, but the Office of Planning never presented anything about these special zones to this community. Never did that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Andrea?
I just wanted to clarify a few things about rulemaking versus contested case. At the towards the end of the zoning commission meeting about this particular case, they decided that the map amendments, of which there are several different kinds, 2 custom zones and then some miscellaneous sort of single family home lots that are kind of lately added, they lumped it all together as a rulemaking. And I think that could be challenged, but the reason it's important is when a case is considered a rulemaking rather than a contested case, it means that there are no parties, nobody is given party status, so they can't, for example, have like a lawyer argue a certain thing for them. Everybody is just a witness. They have 3 minutes to testify. There's just a constraint on how the community can represent itself to the zoning commission. So at that hearing that Ellen McCarthy was talking about, we will already be sort of reduced in our ability to affect what happens next. So it was significant that the rulemaking, that this case was decided as a rulemaking the other night. And given that the ANC wasn't properly noticed, that's kind of an unfortunate chain of events, I would say. Thank you.
Okay, Zach, and then we'll have to move on to the next agenda topic. But I want to say something after Zach. Go on, Zach.
Yeah, I remember getting this email. We got, I think, October 20th, talking about this, the set town. Joel Lawson said he anticipated on November 9th. You know, I think I'm pretty familiar with the resolutions. I was submitting them to the resolution portal recently. And I think our resolutions are to, you know, OP, DEMPED, DCPL, DPR, Councilmember Fruman, I think is on one of them. This was a office of a zoning meeting. I don't think we've issued any resolutions to the DC Zoning Commission. Am I wrong? Does any commissioners aware of we issuing a resolution to that body?
It went to OK.
No, I think technically you're correct, Zach. The issue was, of course, that we were pointing out that we had issued these resolutions to the various city agencies, including the Office of Planning, which proceeded anyway. But the fact that we didn't get the notification from the zoning commission to determine whether or not we wanted to do a resolution to them is the case that we're talking about. It's the procedural issue.
Yeah. And let me just add, when I searched my email from Office of Zoning, I have all kinds of zoning cases in there, including current ones that are ongoing. I think Commissioner Lynch has 2, but nothing on this case. So I'm definitely not pleased that we did not get officially notified. That was a huge mistake. We should have been officially notified. So if the ANC wanted to take additional action on the matter, we could, but we did not get that notification. So I do think the commission needs to probably address that. I have not looked at the comments, but I've heard several times about the comments Commissioner Hood made about the community. If those comments are not appropriate, I think the commission should take that up as well. So we'll go to, if you guys can make your last comments very quickly, because we have to move on with the agenda, but I do want the commission to And I don't know who wants to take the lead, if they want to draft, if we want to draft a letter to Office of Zoning or I'm concerned about a resolution because of the timing. But if they're not going to hear the case until 2024, we still have time for a resolution at the next meeting. So let's go to you.
Bound this meeting and notified a lot of people about it, and I just would like to make it known that I was looking for this all the time. I'm a housewife, I got nothing but time. I was looking for it, and I used to do opposition research for campaigns, so I'm in the business of finding things that are being found. And I had a very difficult time finding this, and the way that I found it was by Googling the special zone. It's like a zone C3 or the actual type of zoning type. It wasn't falling under Chevy Chase. It wasn't falling under any of the key words. It was the devil to find. It was so difficult.
Thank you. So she just said that she had, for folks online, that she had a very hard time trying to find this case online, and had to go through some hoops to actually find it. So just to reiterate that.
Claudia Russell, I just wondered, how is something like this adjudicated? Because it's a he said, she said sort of thing. And since Cat Base is here, maybe he can tell us how something like this is adjudicated.
So her question was, how is this adjudicated? Because it's he said, she said, and because Kent is here, maybe he could chime in.
Sorry. That has to go about problems. Problems. The only thing I would say is, because of the type of meeting it is, I think you would want to go through the zoning commission. I believe there is a process to raise, but I'll have to look and find out what the process is. I know I've spoken to constituents in the past, hearing occurred without them being able to participate as part of it. And if it's
Ken, come up a little closer to the mic, please. Yeah, I don't think I can hear you online.
He's got to turn up the volume.
Thank you.
this one. So as I was saying, enjoy the fish. I believe there's a process that we have in but one thing I would say is regardless of what the feedback is, whether it's a resolution, not a resolution, just a letter, always allow reason well, fill out all the information you ask, all those processes, sure if you have given they believe in understanding. So always make sure that that's your cover page, even if you have lots of but as far as adjudication, I have that. Zoning has a process for zoning is independent. As now, so they don't report to the mayor, they don't answer to the mayor, planning does. So
Got it. Okay, thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to our next agenda item, and that is discussion and possible vote on draft Intelsat resolution. Commissioner Lynch.
Can I actually make an adjustment?
Sure.
Could we go to the walk-thru teachers union contract negotiation? Because we have some WTU folks on the line right now that would rather not have them wait if possible.
If the commission doesn't mind, we should have amended the agenda to switch it up, but if the commission doesn't mind taking WTU first. Everybody okay with that? Okay, yep.
Thank you, everybody. So I have written a resolution that encourages DCPS to enter contract negotiations with the Washington Teachers Union. It's on its third draft, and I hope one of the commissioners that is online might be able to pull it from the emails and place it in the chat But because we have the president of the Washington Teachers Union on with us right now, President Poglines, if you could please introduce yourself, and thank you so much for being here, and maybe tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me, and I thank you for putting us ahead of everyone else. And I'm so grateful that the commission has given me an opportunity to speak to you tonight, along with Peter Lynch. The WTU is thankful that our DCPS teachers were able to secure a contract, along with the great support we received from the community in getting a contract last fall. This contract was hard fought and hard won, and it took over 3.5 years to achieve the contract. And knowing that this was through COVID, through virtual, coming back in person, getting COVID shots, and trying to make up for a lot of the loss that our children suffered due to the pandemic. Try as we might, we tried to extend the contract. DCPS didn't want to extend it, and the contract was signed in November. We were grateful for the things that we received, but unfortunately that contract ended in September. And I remember when the City Council unanimously voted for the contract, they tasked DCPS and the WTU to get right back to the table to get a contract signed on time. WTU, the Washington Teachers Union, took it seriously. We started meeting in the spring. We have a 25-member bargaining team. We met throughout the summer in the basement of the Washington Teachers Union, and we continue to meet. We sent proposals, including some wonderful memorandums of agreement that have to do with violence and emergency preparedness, pushing and trying to keep diversity in the schools. Also some at MOA on climate and environment inside and outside the school. We also had about 13 contract proposals that we sent to DCPS in late August and September. As of yet, we haven't received a response from DCPS on any of our proposals, nor have we received any dates to come back to the table with DCPS. I want to let everyone know that the average teacher in DCPS is 31 years old, totally different from the school district that I entered into 30 years ago, where the average teacher was around in their 40s and their 50s. DCPS does a wonderful job getting the best and the brightest teachers, but we fall short in keeping them. Many of our teachers have peers in other professions that make 24% more than they do. Many of our teachers are now starting to have families. We want to keep them, and plus we want them to be able to live in the district and send their families to District of Columbia Public Schools. We can't do this if we're constantly trying to get a contract and having delayed contracts. This contract took 3 years. The contract before that took 5 years. We are happy that the State Board of Ed supported us in a resolution demanding that DCPS get a contract by January, and we're hoping that the commission will also support a resolution. And again, I want to thank you all for giving us an opportunity to talk to you about our plight in trying to get a contract on time with DC.
Thank you so much, President Poglines. We deeply appreciate it. Do any commissioners have any questions?
I have a question. President Poglines,
Yes.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
When I heard your name, I got a little starstruck because I follow you. So thank you for all the work that you've done. And I know you're working hard to get this contract done. Can you just give me though what do you think is the holdup? Because it seems like each year, is it DCPS noodling through the information? Is it administrative? What do you think is like attributed to the delay of years on these contracts?
I think it's often hard to try something new and to do something new. And so the second the city council said, you need to get a contract signed on time, we need to be fiscally responsible, because we had to pay teachers 3 years retro for this last contract. So we constantly see an urgency in getting this done. And me as someone who's a 30-year veteran, who's found that this is the most rewarding work. Like I keep saying, besides being a mother to my son, teaching in DCPS has been the most rewarding thing that I've done. But there's so much competition for our young people, and we're losing them. If I feel like if we can get these teachers in and keep them for 5 or 6 years, we have them. But we're losing them at 2, we're losing them at 3, and they're a lot younger. I've never thought I would see the day where I'm saying the average teacher is 31 years old. And we have to think differently. And I don't think DCPS sees the urgency in thinking differently and doing things differently, which means stop signing contracts late. Teachers see that as a disrespect.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Just a question, Commissioner Lynch, is the anchor to our jurisdiction, our ANC, our local teachers, or are you thinking about that? And the union obviously represents them, and that's the connection here. I'm mindful of our ANC's statutory guidance in terms of what we have jurisdiction over and what constitutes great weight. It is about our neighborhood, obviously, and we are entitled to great weight when it has to do with matters concerning our neighborhood.
Yeah, so there are kids in our ANC that go to public schools all over the city, and there are union teachers at every DCPS school within our ANC. So I think this is directly germane to our ANC, and I think this might be also a good time to read the actual resolution, because this is the third draft. I'm not sure everybody has it. Frederick Douglass, great Washingtonian, said it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Youth crime is a persistent problem in the district. Educators of the Washington Teachers Union are uniquely positioned to interrupt participation in crime and encourage a positive path forward for their students. Teachers that are respected, supported, and compensated appropriately will serve the children of Washington, D.C. better than those that are not. Large numbers of teachers across the country and Washington, D.C. are leaving the profession. Teachers are more likely to stay when they and their unions are respected. A fair and timely contract negotiation is one way to show that respect. ANC 34G recognizes an historic precedent in this country, one we wish to avoid, does not immediately recognize the vital role teachers have in society. Number 8, this ANC, well, actually we struck that one. No, I'm sorry. This ANC passed a Merch Elementary resolution on April 24th saying ANC 34G recognizes that the success of all DCPS neighborhood schools are critical to the future of our neighborhoods, and that all schools should have access to the funding they need to thrive. Number 9, the DC State Board of Education voted unanimously for a resolution on October 18th, 2023, urging a prompt resolution to negotiations between the Washington Teachers Union and DC Public Schools to improve teachers' working conditions, maintain existing labor protections, enhance school safety, and support teacher retention, thereby enhancing students' educational experiences. 10, the Washington Teachers Union has requested negotiations that take place after school hours so that teachers can participate. 11, the Washington Teachers Union requested contract negotiations with DCPS. The Washington City Paper reported DC's last round of contract negotiations with the Washington Teachers Union took roughly 3 years to complete. The one before that took about 5 years. WTU's most recent deal with DC Public Schools expired September 30th, and the two sides have yet to return to the bargaining table. Resolved, ANC 34G urges DCPS to hold negotiations for a new contract after school hours so teachers in the Washington Teachers Union can participate. Number 2, ANC 34G urges DCPS to begin negotiations as requested by the Washington Teachers Union and State Board of Education as soon as possible for the benefit of our children, schools, and teachers in Washington, D.C. and ANC 34G.
Go on.
What is the percentage, what is the percentage of teachers in Washington DC who belong to this union?
Mrs.
Right
Poconos,
now,
you are more able to answer that than I am, if you want to take that one.
right now we have about 84 to 85% of the teachers are full members of the Washington Teachers Union. Since Janice in 2018, you're either a potential member or full member, and we are happy to say that we have close to 6,000 members, and about 84, 85% are full members, dues paying members of the union.
And if you don't belong to the union, do you still get the same contract, or what happens?
The only thing you don't receive
Union,
pretty
you're
much
not
as a
in.
member, I'm sorry,
You get the benefit of it.
What?
You get the benefit of it.
You
for
do.
all the
Oh.
teachers.
you do. You pretty much get everything except the right to vote.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, I'm gonna ask that we take a vote on this. You wanna move the, resolution?
Yes, and I'd like to say beforehand too, thank you both very much for your time. I know Mike Rowland is here as well, representing Washington Teachers Union, and thank you so much. I move that we go to a vote.
I move that we adopt the resolution.
I move that we adopt the resolution.
I second. Commissioners, hopefully we had the discussion. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. All right.
Basic 7-0.
Yep. Thank you. It passes 7-0. Awesome. Thank you, WTU.
Thank
Yes,
you
thank
so
you
much.
again for
This
your
is
time.
wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
you want to move on now to the Intelsat proposal?
Yes.
And we got about 15 minutes to vacate.
In consideration of the time of the people that work at this building, if it is the will of the commission, I move that we table this resolution for another meeting.
I second. Commissioners, all in favor? Raise your hand. Okay, 7-0 to table this resolution. Thank you. Commissioner Gosselin, you want to do the update on the street light walkthrough?
We did a walkthrough. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Last Tuesday, we did a walkthrough with officials of the DDOT, of the Transportation Department, and the contractors for the streetlight replacement program, the replacement of about 80,000 streetlights across the city. There was some progress in the conversation. The contractor and DDOT acknowledged that the kinds of shields they've been putting up to date are kind of polarizing shields on the lights don't work quite the way I think people expected them to. And that a more, what we understand as a shield, a barrier against light going into your home, those shields are coming. They will have to work through a backlog. They hope to get through that backlog in a month, and they will let us know then, at which point they will say, anybody requesting a shield has the right to expect a response and a shield within 5 days, or the city will be talking to the contractor. The thing that came out of it that I think is less productive is that the city feels very strongly about having uniform light across the city, and therefore is been very reluctant to do something that they have the remote capacity to do, which is to dim. They seem to be taking the position that they will only dim a block if the entire block agrees it needs to be dimmed. So it was a long meeting out on the streets, measuring light and so forth. Chair Gore was there. An incredible resource that this ANC has at its disposal. Laura Finizzi was there. So it was useful, and was a useful meeting, but I think we still have a ways to go in trying to come to a compromise that satisfies most people.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions on that? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Goslin. Commissioner Nash, you want to discuss really quickly the ANC proposed transportation committee?
Okay, how much time do we have?
Not a lot. About 2 minutes.
2 minutes? Okay.
We still got a little bit to get through on the agenda.
All right. I would like to then postpone this till our next meeting.
Okay.
If I could have maybe 5 minutes.
On the next
do it
meeting.
at the start of the next meeting.
Sure.
I don't think 2 minutes will do justice to this momentous event.
Okay.
We're going to be starting a transportation committee.
Okay, let's move on to ANC task force and committee reports. I don't think we have anything from zoning design development. Okay. Survey committee, we pretty much gave our report already. Race, Corinthia and Libya, are you on? Corinthia and Libby, are you online? I'm gonna have to say Libby's name first. Are either of you there?
Yes.
Okay, go on.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Right. Bryce has 3 items to mention tonight, very briefly. The community gathering meet and greet that we had last week at the Chevy Chase Lounge was wonderful, and we wanted to thank everybody for coming out. It was so nice to just be together and have a chance. We met lots of people. Some of us knew each other, had seen each other on email or the listserv, and some were completely new faces who came in. And it was just a chance to say hello as a community, and we hope to be doing more of these gatherings in the future. So we'll try to get the word out steadily and in advance as we go forward. Second thing is Race is currently posting resources on the website. It will be on the ANC website. So folks who are interested in looking for recommended reading or videos, seminars, webinars, things that are going on in terms of current events or topics, they are going to be posted on the ANC Race page. So take a look at that. And lastly, I wanted to just point out that a letter has been sent by Race to the commissioners, ANC 3G commissioners. We learned recently about a dire situation in Ivy City, Northeast DC, where the community has basically for years been having to deal with polluted and difficult situation. It's an environmental, an industry warehouse factory laden area of the city, and a particular factory company named National Engineering Products has been producing for many years, since the 1930s, military grade sealants, and these are polluting and sickening the residents of Ivy City to the point where they're suffering from asthma, headaches, nausea, losing their taste and smell, learning disabilities among their children. I mean, the people are very afraid that their children are inhaling toxic substances all the time. This factory really is, it's small, but it's really smack dab in the middle of this residential community. And there are calls now on behalf of Ivy City to not only close, but close this factory, but to do what can be done to help repair the problems that were created. This company is caters to the military, to the Navy as their primary client. So a letter has been sent to our commissioners, and we hope that there will be a discussion to focus a lot on this issue. That's it.
All right. Thank you, Libby.
Thank you.
And we will take that letter up. I'll work on a draft resolution, but commissioners, please check your email and we'll all chime in on it.
Thank you.
And Murray Project Task Force.
Hey, Lisa.
Jenny, are you on?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
Good, thank you. Well, there has not been a lot of activity so far since the summer for the Murray Task Force because there has not been a lot of activity on the field. But we have done a little bit of communicating just between the committee members. We had scheduled our first meeting of the fall season for December 6th, and we want to announce tonight publicly that we are moving it to December 5th at 7 p.m. And Michael Osborne and I will update the listserv. We'll send you guys something for the ANC webpage, and we'll do Chevy Chase Chatter. We expect this to be a really important meeting and for the community, and we want to strongly encourage people to attend because we have heard that the Murray folks are winding down their permitting process. They're in the process of winding that down and getting things finalized, and have indicated to us that they hope to be able to report to us about what next steps would be for them once permitting is finished. So we want to work with you, Lisa, and the ANC. Obviously, we have two great commissioners that join you on the task force, Commissioner Sherman and Commissioner Nash, but we'd love to have all of the ANC there, plus all of the community there if it is an update, and we will work with you to facilitate that. It may be that there are other briefings in advance, but we'll still be talking about that hopefully by that period. Don't want to make any promises on behalf of Murray, but that's sort of what they have indicated to us. And I checked in with Trey before tonight's meeting just to say it. This is what I'm going to say to you, and he was comfortable with that. So that's where we are. And we will work to make sure everybody has the information. We run our meetings just like you do. We're on Zoom. We have a form that people can send in questions in advance. We also take questions from the chat. And just want to thank you guys for the opportunity and looking forward to seeing everybody.
Thank you. Okay, that's committees. Under commission business, secretary report.
Yes.
Point of information.
I would like to say that in a couple months, I will complete 1 year of service as your secretary, and I agreed to do this for 1 year. I am going to be working hard, I believe, on the transportation committee, so I'd like to encourage and invite all ANC commissioners who are not officers to step up and do their duty starting in January of next year. Okay, you can contact me and I'll tell you all about it. It's a fun job. Okay, and I did the September 11th minutes. I sent them out, so have a look, and we'll get that done at our next meeting, along with these minutes.
Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Yes, the item today
We can't
is,
hear you, Zach.
okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me? You still can't hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'll share my screen because right now we have the fiscal year 24 budget. We looked at this in a previous meeting. It's unchanged. You know what, I think we can just, because it's the exact same, I'll just skip the share screen. But so my motion, pending discussion, of course, if anyone has any questions, is to approve the same budget we looked at last time we looked at this.
I second. All those in favor, raise your hand, commissioners. 7-0.
Thanks.
Can we have a motion for my reimbursement on the commission mailings? Thank you. It's $260.96. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. 7-0. All right. And our next meeting is going to be on November 22nd. So that's after Thanksgiving. It'll also be hybrid. So we will be back in here and online. We have a couple things on the agenda. We hopefully don't have any community announcements. We got 2 minutes to get out of here.
I've got one quick.
Okay.
announcement, and that is that, as a follow-up to the meeting that you and I both chaired at St. John's on car break-ins and thefts, which was nicely attended by members of the community last Thursday. We have the full attention of the senior levels of Metropolitan Police to focus on this problem, and including a number of things that I put out on the listserv, and we'll remind people about that the MPD will be doing, including getting closer to the community. So on Wednesday, from 4 to 5 in front of Starbucks is a meet and greet with 2nd District police officers. Assistant Chief Morgan Kane, who was at the meeting on Thursday at St. John's, asked we invite her as well, which we will do. That remains to be seen if she can attend, but we're going to begin a much closer relationship with MPD. And we have new clarified reporting on crime that we put out to everyone. So if you are available at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Wednesday, come to Starbucks and meet your local 2nd District police officer.
Yeah, definitely. Commissioner Gosselin?
Yeah, I'm happy to put it off, but we forgot to deal with the bioretention basin.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. They're ready to get.
Fine.
Can you do like a minute?
Well, I think this is a ripe issue. I think we all of us, most of these commissioners, most of the commissioners on this ANC have met with residents about problems. We support the general concept of biobasins. We support both the biobasins as a environmental matter and as a traffic calming measure. But some of the ways they've designed these things, we really need to have explanation for. I've drafted a resolution in that regard, and I've passed it around to the commissioners. My own view is that we've already heard from residents at our last meeting. This is not something that needs to be dallied over. I think we ought to just vote for this and get it to.
Okay, Peter, just to speed it up. Commissioner Zeldin had some friendly amendments. Did you see that in his email to us?
Did not. I mean, I'm sorry. So
okay.
Let's put it off. I mean,
okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So we all have, the only way I didn't realize the commission had this many amendments to it. The only way I would feel comfortable on it is if at the end of the day, we can all agree. Do you want to still take the vote knowing that?
I think I can agree with almost anything, but on this. So but if you want to put it off until next time, it's fine with me. We got a lot of business over the next couple of weeks.
You want to put it off? Okay. Well, I think the commission wants to delay it.
Okay.
Based on what's here, yes, they're all saying yes.
Other than Commissioner Lynch, I didn't hear until just now about friendly amendments. So let's put it off till the 27th.
That sounds good. Okay, with that, meeting is adjourned 8:59. Thank you everyone for coming. If you don't mind, please take your chair to the back of the room. We'll put it up. And thanks for coming out. Great meeting.